Welcome everybody, Russell J.S. here. Today, Memorial Day. It is 12:26 p.m. Memorial Day 2025, Cape Coral, Florida. And, well, what can I say? It's your weekly third show, third vlog video show on the Russell J.S. channel. It's the Weekly J.S. One of the things I want to do, because, on this channel, I always like to go ahead and talk about things about life in general. And if you're new to the channel, feel free to hit a like, subscribe, leave comments down in the box below, and hit the notification bell for, notifications for up and coming videos. At any rate, one of the things I want to talk about, I just watched this really good movie. I've been thinking about it for a while because I was told about it. It's a independent, low budget independent movie. It actually stars the great Willem Dafoe, and it is filmed on location over like a couple hundred yards away from Walt Disney World in Kissimmee on US Highway 182. We all know that highway. We all know that strip. Anybody that's lived in Florida, been to Disney World or Universal knows that strip of road. That's where all the budget motels are at, and now remnants of what used to be the roadside attractions outside of Disney, which I hear they're going to build that stuff right back up, to bring more income and more revenue into the town. Movie is called, and it came out in 2017. The movie was called The Florida Project. Just yesterday, I watched it for the third time, and I gotta say, it's heartbreaking and heartwarming at the same time, if that would make sense. What it's about is what's really going on in our world today with poverty is, a lot of people are seeking residence at budget roadside motels with, families and kids, because they got no place else to go because the housing market is really bad. I mean, I should know, I live here in Florida, but, like a lot of these families, they become the downtrodden, fell on hard times, and they're trying to do what they got to do. And this movie, if you haven't seen this movie, but before I get into this, if you haven't seen this movie, I mean, some of you have already seen it and some of you have not. I'm going to be bringing spoilers into this video. So if you haven't seen The Florida Project yet, I suggest you shut off this video for right now. Go to whatever streaming services on your television, Netflix, Hulu, whatever your streaming service for movies is, or go down to your local public library if they got DVD movies. Watch this movie and watch it with an open heart and an open mind. All right, so now I'm going to take that moment, just take a few seconds for those of you who haven't seen the movie to go ahead and shut down this video. Okay, here's the rest of the video. What the story is, because what happened was one of the writers of this movie was going to Orlando to go visit his mom, and one of the things he noticed was outside of one of those budget motels on the roadside, right near where the offbeat Disney gift shops are at, he saw kids playing in the parking lot of one of the motels as if it was their personal playground. And one of the things where I could relate, because you see, I relate to three people there. I relate to the parents, I relate to the kids, and I relate to the motel manager, played awesomely by Willem Dafoe. At any rate, so he was driving down US 192 one day, going to visit his mom, and he saw these kids in the parking lot playing like they're playing on the playground, and he couldn't understand why, and they're unsupervised and everything. He couldn't understand why, what was going on. And I should know, here's where I relate as one of the adults. There was a time where I fell on hard times, and I lived in a budget roadside motel in an efficiency. And I was surrounded by a lot of, unsavory company that I wouldn't consider my good friends. They were the kind of people that I would just not socialize with, hang out with. like all the, but the thing is, in this movie, the story goes, is you got these three young kids. Mooney, who is one of the main characters, along with her mother, Haley. Scooty, who lives in the apartment, is somewhat Haley's the son of one of Haley's friends, Ashley. And then you got one kid named Dickie who lives in the motel, the Futureland Motel right next door. This was filmed over by the old Magic Castle Motel, the one that used to be real purple and looked like a castle. Well, thing is, as you're watching this movie, as we watch this movie, we could see these kids, their parents are all on hard times, and they live out of this motel because housing market in Florida, as you know, if you're a resident of Florida like I am, it stinks. They can't even find a trailer, like a 2-bedroom, 1-bath trailer for what they're paying to live out of a motel room. And these motels, there's still guests who go to the Disney and Universal parks to stay, because it's a lot cheaper than going to some of the hotels that are on Disney and Universal property. And the sad part is, these kids are living in a motel just 6 miles away from Disney World, and they know Disney World is right there because they're around the gift shops that sell the cheap or bootleg Disney merch. And these kids, they just wish they could go to Disney World, but they think they don't deserve to go to Disney World because they're bad kids. Well, here's the thing. You see, these kids, they're 6 and 7 years old. They do a lot of bad stuff. They get into mischief. They throw water balloons at tourists. They spit on cars of the guests. They use all kinds of bad language. When the helicopter tours take off, they scream at the helicopter, use bad swears. I mean, the way this movie is done, for some reason, I think Stand By Me and Clerks and maybe The Little Rascals. Because think about what The Little Rascals was about, those movies. I mean, Clerks is about people trying to make it in the world that are working crummy jobs. The Little Rascals, The Goonies, and Stand By Me are all about kids who are actually living in poverty. And still the parents do what they got to do for them, but they go on adventures. And these kids, they'll go to a cow field, and they look at that as a safari, animal kingdom. They'll go ahead and explore the ruins of what used to be a nice, luxurious condo complex, and it's almost like the Haunted Mansion. And then one day, Scooty, Dickie, and Mooney, they get busted over at the other motel spitting on a car, and come to find out the car belongs to a resident of the Future Inn Motel and her grandchildren, where Mooney makes fast friends with with the woman's granddaughter, Jancy. And of course, they have to clean up the mess of what they did. And these kids, they do a lot of bad things. And it's probably because, you would think it's because of their parents. But the problem is, the one who is actually a bad influence, sadly, is Mooney, the main girl. Because her mother, it starts out, we find out that her mother was fired from a strip club. She was an exotic dancer, and she was fired from a strip club because she wouldn't have sex with the clients. And she's really falling on hard times, she's in fear of losing her benefits. And, the church food donation truck comes by to bring free food to the residents. And, Bobby, who is played by Willem Dafoe, the motel manager, he's doing everything he possibly can. He's got a good heart. He's empathetic. I mean, he looks at all the residents as his real, his true family, where, he's estranged from his son. It shows that in the movie. But even when he cares about the people that live there, that reside there, he knows that it is his job, where if they're not making rent or they're causing problems, that he has to kick them out. And he doesn't have the heart to do it. He protects the kids. Like, there's one scene in particular that stands out for me in this movie, where all the little kids are over by this grassy knoll in the picnic area playing outside, and a strange, suspicious old man who's not even a guest comes up to the kids, striking conversation with them. So Bobby sees what's going on, and he comes up to the gentleman. Hey, can I help you? Or you guess he's like, oh, you know how child predators are. They stutter because they make up any lie they can to get to those kids, to lure them. And he just lies to Bobby. Oh, I was just walking around. I was looking to get a soda. And, Bobby thought that's kind of odd. So he brings him back. He's, keeping the guy calm, keeping him until they get to the soda machine. And slowly the old man is putting the quarters in to get his soda. He gets his soda. He attempts to walk away. Bobby's like, whoa, wait. Didn't you say you were thirsty? Don't you want to drink that? So he cracks it open, takes a sip, and Bobby knocks it out of his hand and chases the guy out, gets his ID, tackles him to get his ID to find out who he is, and he shoos him away. Now, mad respect for Bobby and people like Bobby in real life that will go out of their way to protect kids like that. Now, had it been me, I would have actually made him stay, give him the option of he could either leave right now. I mean, I would do that whole thing like he did instead of cause a scene in front of the kids. But I would actually tell him, you got the option of either you leave right now or you could stay here and I'll call the police, not only have you arrested for attempted child abduction, but I will have you trespassed from the premises. And you know what? I can relate to that because when I worked at the hotel, when I wasn't, shuttling guests to and fro, I was because we had kids that were at night were running around the lobby, running up and down the hallways. Guests were complaining, calling up the front desk that, you got kids knocking on their doors, playing, door ditch or whatever it is they do. And there was a lot. You had to take responsibility in that job. So I kind of related to Bobby. I wasn't a manager, but, I did have to do my share of security. I mean, I had my share of chores. And I relate to the parents because, the adults, because they're trying to make things better for their families. They're trying to, do what they got to do. And mostly, the one kid I feel sorry for the most is Mooney. Because the thing is with Mooney, her mom, she tries to do things like hustle cheap perfume out to guests that are staying at the more fancier hotels in the Orlando Kissimmee area. And she ends up, while Mooney is in taking a bath, she ends up, starting to prostitute herself. And all she's doing is being Mooney's best friend, like her older sister, instead of being a mom. Because Mooney in this movie, she has no discipline. She doesn't have discipline, structure, anything, because Haley is being more of Mooney's best friend than her mother. Now, any of you, like good as well as I do, like our parents weren't there to be our best friend. They were there to teach us and guide us and teach us right from wrong. Because I'll tell you this much, at 6 or 7, had my parents found out I was swearing at adults, spitting on cars, lighting abandoned condos on fire. My biggest punishment would be my father would whoop my butt to the point where I couldn't sit down for a month. That would be my punishment. I could still watch cartoons, still play outside, still go over to friends' houses, whatever have you. But my punishment is I'm not going to be able to sit down. Nope. No sitting down for you. And the thing is, in this movie, the sad part about Mooney is she has no behavioral structure. She doesn't know how to behave. She thinks her life is normal, and her mother smokes grass, hustles cheap perfumes and colognes to guests at fancier hotels, At one point, a client of hers that she was prostituting to, he had some magic bands for the theme parks at Disney, and she went ahead, $1,700 worth of magic bands. She went ahead and sold them off to somebody else for $400. And there she is taking Mooney to, act like a real brat. I mean, it is said that, according to Scooty, because he was about to get in trouble with Ashley, with his mom, and I guess Scooty went ahead and told Ashley that Mooney was the one who set the fire at the condos. I almost forgot about that, the abandoned condos. I mean, what I'm trying to get at, and then what happens is after, the DCF, they investigate Mooney and Haley, and they deem Haley to be an unfit mom, and they're trying to make things nice for Mooney, try to convince her, oh, we're going to go to this place, a lot of toys, we're going to have a lot of fun. And then she goes, can I at least say goodbye to my friend Scooty downstairs? So she knocks on Scooty's, and here's where reality is getting ready to hit Mooney. I mean, she knows that she's going away, and she's probably not going to see her friends, if not ever again, but for a long, long time. And these are her best friends. And, all she knows is she's just going to be going away on a trip for a while. And then Scooty just announces what's happening. And she gets ready to throw a big temper tantrum at the social workers. And the social workers are trying to calm her down. And she breaks from them. And she runs over next door to the Future Inn to try to tell Jancy's what is up. And this is the part of the movie where even I was touched. Okay, it tugged at my heartstrings. I was fighting back the tears. I mean, my heart was aching. And the thing about watching this movie, it's just like Clerks. You're not in these people's lives. They're fictional characters. You have to remind yourself you're watching a movie. And what I think is that Hollywood, all the major studios in Hollywood, they should look to stories like this as opposed to, okay, let's shelf the concept we had for a new Fast and Furious or a new Star Wars or a new, what do you call it? Like a new Marvel movie or DC movie. Disney, forget it. They're kind of, going broke at this point. So, Mooney starts tearing up and crying to Jancy, and you get this sense of understanding. You get this this understanding about what friendship is all about. I mean, in this day and age, those kids, they don't even have the internet. They don't have devices like kids do today. And this is where I relate to those kids, because that's what we did in the 80s as kids. We went outside and played. There was a time where it was safe for kids to be outside playing unsupervised, and then you were called in by 5 o'clock at night for dinner, and you said goodbye to your friends and said, see you tomorrow, at the summertime. And the thing is, I start to think to myself, there's a part of me that kind of sympathizes for Haley, but I sympathize more for Mooney, because Mooney doesn't need that kind of life. She needs a parent in her life that's going to teach her right from wrong, that should have been teaching her right from wrong since birth. And Haley didn't do that. And I've known a lot of girls when I was in my 20s. I knew a lot of girls who were just like Haley. They have kids, but they don't want to spend 24/7. They don't really want the responsibility. And they want to go out and party, get high, and get drunk. I mean, I knew of a girl when I was in my 20s, same age as me. She used to drop her 1-year-old son off at her mother and stepfather's house and say, I'll be back by 11 o'clock. And then 11 o'clock, when she was done partying, turned into 3 in the morning. And she would go back home, and the parents would have some things to say. And sometimes they wouldn't even watch the kid, because they have to have a life that's theirs too. And she would try to pawn her kid off to anybody just so she could go out and have a good time and get high or get, get stoned or, get with some man for the night, because, oh, I have my needs too, blah, blah, blah. And, I think to myself, after I've watched this movie, it made me think of all the Haleys and Moonies of the world out there. And my heart is broken that there are kids out there. I mean, watching this movie, if you ever saw the Metallica video for Turn the Page, where Ginger Lynn plays that single mother living with her daughter in the roadside motel, and by day she's stripping for money, and then by night she's calling up Johns for money and gets beaten at the end of the video. If you haven't seen it, also check out that video and check out the movie The Florida Project. But my heart really, Mooney actually reminded me of my own daughter. And one of the things, if you've watched my videos and I brought up my daughter from time to time, if you know, then then you know what I'm talking about. You know what I've been through when it came to my kid. And I give credit to my ex, to my daughter's mom, and I thank God that she doesn't have her and my daughter living that life. Thank God for that. I mean, despite the fact that her mother had lied, stolen, and cheated her way through life, at least she was able to make sure the electric was on, there was internet, there was water, there's a roof over their heads and food in their bellies. And I thank God every day for that. And I pray that one day I'll be reunited with my daughter once again. But when I get to that part, and here's what happens, that scene where she's crying to Jancy and Jancy's trying to figure out what's wrong, what can I do to help my friend? She just goes ahead and, almost like Thelma and Louise ending style, grabs Mooney by the hand. She looks around and the two start running away from the hotel, and they're running further and further. And then they find themselves right there in the Magic Kingdom at Disney World, and it ends. And I like what they did with that ending. What happened was that only in their heads? How did they get into Disney World? How this, how that? But their imagination, they were in Disney World when they used their imagination, imagining what Disney World is like. Some people think that the two girls ran off, attempted to run away, but already got caught, and Mooney ended up in foster care, and they're going to put, Haley in try to get Haley to go into a program to where she could be a better mother and learn things, maybe get her GED if she dropped out of high school. But, I don't know. I mean, this is the first time ever where I could say I got a new favorite movie. I mean, I could say how much I love, some of the sequel trilogy and Star Wars, the Disney Star Wars, how much I love Ghostbusters Frozen Empire or whatever. But you know what? All of those are just long-awaited sequels that we've been wanting since childhood. Along comes a movie like this, and it makes me think. Not all those people that live out of motels or live in crappy trailer parks with their kids are all bad. Good lot of them fell on hard times, but can you trust them if you wanted to help them? I mean, let me put it this way. When Mooney, that ending part when Mooney's crying to Jancy, and she's putting her fingers in her mouth and biting on them like a little kid would when they're crying hard. I mean, that's where reality, because, Mooney is not going to be used to things. Mooney's only used to what goes on in her everyday life. And, I feel bad for, not only do I feel bad for her, but I feel bad for kids like her in real life, whose parents, maybe the mother thinks that that's a way to make her kid love her, but it's not. I mean, and that's what I think the story is, and, the fact that these kids have imagination, that's great, but you know what? these kids are going to get older. They're going to end up like Haley, like their mothers, end up pregnant at a young age. And, it's a simple awareness that, that's what it came to me, awareness. And, I see things like that. I just want to grab those kids, get them in my car and take them to the child services. But in real life, I can't do that because then I'm accused of abducting. If any of us did that, we'd be accused of abducting children, and that's a felony. But, the way that movie ended, that gives you, is it too late that, they caught the girls before they can make it to Disney World and that was just their imagination? Or, maybe Jancy's grandmother, maybe she went ahead and talked to the social worker. Hey, this is how I have my grandkids. These two girls, they bonded. Could I take them in? Maybe, social services would allow her to take Mooney in, and she could adopt Mooney and take care of her because, that's the understanding right there. I don't know. Now, if you did stick around for the video, despite the fact I told you to shut it down, I did give spoilers, but I suggest you go out and get this movie, watch it. I mean, I want to go out and find more movies similar to it, but yeah, I mean, first time I decided just to open up my mind and open up my heart, and it's like we judge people for the way they are, and it's not a system that's failed. It's us as a society that's failed because we shun these people out like they're the dregs, they're the scum of the earth, when really we don't know their backgrounds. We don't know what they're about. At any rate, I'm going to go ahead and end the vlog. Remember, if you're new to the channel, like, subscribe, thumbs up. If you love the video, hit the notification bell for more future videos. And, let's have open hearts for, people, because we don't know their situation. And I'll be back soon with a Kicking It Old School. The next one I'm focusing on is another album versus album track by track. It's going to be Robert Plant, Fate of Nations versus Ozzy Osbourne, No More Tears. Now, I think that's going to be a good one. That's going to be solid. At any rate, this is the end of the vlog. See you next time on the Weekly J.S. and shuckalugga kapow.